My 5 most worn fragrances of 2025 so far. So I know all of these fragrances are catering to my personal taste. I love them. There's something really special about each and every one of them. And these are not just fragrances that I'm wearing for testing purposes, because what I typically do is I acquire a fragrance, I spend a solid 5 to 7 days testing it, and then I prepare myself for a review. However, these are fragrances that I'm quite familiar with. I'm just wearing them because I love how they smell. I'm gonna let you know what they are in just a bit, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's episode and I tell you about these 5 fragrances, my most worn fragrances of 2025 so far, I'm not saying these are the best in the world, and there's a nice balance between designer and niche, and there's also a inspiration in here as well. It's a bit of a hybrid as far as I'm concerned. I'll tell you about it in just a little bit. I want to start the video off first by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance related content, and of course if you love smelling your best, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and give this video a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. It would really mean a lot to me. Now, if you're interested, some of these fragrances, most of them, can be sampled at scentsplit.com. I'm going to drop all of the information down below. They are affiliate links, but this is not a sponsored video. I do want to make it as convenient as possible for you to get your nose on some of these fragrances, especially if the way that I'm describing them or the note breakdown or the aesthetic or anything about them appeals to you. This way you can get a decant of one of these fragrances. Try it on your own skin. Everybody's skin chemistry and pH levels are different. See how it works with you and your personal tastes, and then if you find that it's in alignment, then you can commit to the purchase of a full-size bottle. But I don't want anybody spending money unnecessarily. I don't want you wasting money, especially if you end up buying it and God forbid you don't like it, right? So ScentSplit is amazing. You can purchase really high quality decants. So the first fragrance is actually a new acquisition of mine. This stuff is incredible. I mean, you really have to get your nose on this one because I think it's super special, especially if you live in a colder climate like I do. So it tends to get quite cold here. Yeah, it was in the 50s today, 50 Fahrenheit. But on some days, like the other day, it was quite windy at night. The real field temperature was like 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It was super cold. I know the Canadians are going to be like, stop complaining. But this one by Gucci, part of the Alchemist Garden, is called Vanilla Firenze. Now, this is a beautiful, spicy, incensey, slightly peppery, smoky vanilla fragrance. And gosh, if you love fragrances like By the Fireplace by Maison Margiela, where you know it's a little smoky, but you have that undercurrent of sweetness, but with an emphasis on some really high quality vanilla, this stuff is gorgeous. 2025 release. There was a period of time where I spent like 4 or 5 consecutive days wearing this one every single evening. I wore something else in the morning, lingered in the afternoon, and then right around the evening I said, I'm gonna put me on some Vanilla Firenze. And this is just a beautiful fragrance. And I was hanging around with a friend, and we went to Saks Fifth Avenue, and he tried it as well, and he bought it too. So this is just an amazing fragrance. And I know the brand has released several new fragrances, but this is my favorite of the newer ones that Gucci has put out. It's really incredible. Okay. The next fragrance, and this is my second bottle. I did a video on this recently, so I acquired the original, and then I love this fragrance so much, I ended up picking up the triple aged batch. And once I said that, some of you may already know what it is. It's Absolute Aventus by Creed. So this is actually my second bottle, and this is the triple aged batch, which is kind of a bummer, and it's quite silly if I'm being honest with you. It should be written somewhere on the bottle. It's written only on the box, which is kind of annoying to me because I'd like to know which is which. I know which one is which because I have a little scratch on the cap here. But this, yeah, so this is a spicy grown-up version of Creed Aventus. The original Creed Aventus is also grown up. It's very sophisticated, refined, quite polished, beautiful fruity chypre. Can't believe it's been around for 15 years now. This one, on the other hand, it has that spicy cardamom with the nutmeg, and you have a hint of smoke. The pineapple is still in here, but it's a spicier, woodsier version of the original Creed Aventus. Absolute Aventus is wonderful. It's definitely one of my favorite fragrances, super high quality, and I just love wearing this one because it's a nice change of pace, you know? I wore Creed Aventus for many, many, many years. Since 2010 or 2011 when I first purchased it, I have since gone through at least a dozen bottles, maybe more, including the really big flacon. It's always been a favorite of mine, but having Absolute Aventus is a nice way of switching it up, especially, like I said, with the first one, in the colder climate, it does wonders. Okay, so this next fragrance is going to make sense, especially after my spiel on Absolute Aventus. This one by Atralia is Absolute Noir. So this fragrance, I purchased this on Amazon for, what was it, 34 bucks, 35 bucks or something like that. And I watched a few videos from other people and everybody had some like glaringly positive things to say about it. And I said, I'm going to check this one out, even though I think the brand has reached out to me on email. Could be wrong about that, but I think they reached out to me and I never replied to them. But now that I purchased this with my own money and I tried it, I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty good. I may respond to their email if I'm indeed thinking of the same correspondence. This stuff is awesome. Look, this is, so for me, it's a hybrid. I don't know if it's marketed as a clone or twist of this fragrance, Absolute Aventus by Creed, but this one for me personally smells like a hybrid between Absolute Aventus by Creed and Lattafa Assad, which is a smoother version of Christian Dior's Sauvage Elixir. And the reason I say that is because with Lattafa Assad, you don't get that heavy-handed spice in the opening. I know some people have said it kind of smells like body odor, and that's not a good thing, obviously. I love Sauvage Elixir, but I agree. Those first 5-10 minutes are quite harsh with all the spices, and it does smell a bit like cumin, if I'm being honest with you. This one is 80% this fragrance and 20% Lattafa Assad. And even then, that Lattafa Assad vibe, that spicy cardamom-y, sort of a Sauvage Elixir-y lavender vibe, only lingers for like 5-10 minutes. And then you're left with the dry down, which is more about that bright, juicy pineapple compounded with the smooth, elegant citruses. Absolute Noir is fantastic. This is by Atralia. 35 bucks on Amazon, super cheap, 100 ml, eau de parfum, and pressurized atomizer. It's amazing. It's really, really good. So I may at this point buy a backup bottle just for the sake of having it, because with this fragrance, yeah, see, in the air I'm getting Lattafa Assad, but I know if I spray it on skin and wait 5-10 minutes, it's going to smell like this. But what I was going to say is with this one, in my hands, proverbially speaking, I'm going to be wearing a lot less of this one, which could be a good thing because it's super expensive. Anyway, this next fragrance, I purchased this at duty free. Probably should have waited, probably should have looked around online, but the sales associate was quite eager to close the sale and I wanted it right then and there. This one by Hugo Boss is called Invincible Bergamot. So this is also a fruity chypre. So it definitely has some Aventus vibes about it. But this one is a lot mossier. So think about that green mossy vibe. Yeah, kind of similar to like those 80s powerhouse fragrances. I think there's oak moss in here. It's definitely mossy. It's definitely mossy, but it definitely has that bright zingy appeal of the citrus compounded with the pineapple. So Invincible Bergamot is Hugo Boss's take on Creed Aventus, done in a very upscale, luxurious way. Big bottle too. Kind of looks like, oh, it's a 3.3 ounce. I was going to say it looks a bit bigger than a 3.3, but anyway. And the fragrance in the #1 spot. So I purchased this one from Saks Fifth Avenue towards the tail end of last year. Yeah. So I visited the booth or the stand, I don't know what to call it, but each brand has its own designated space within the store. And I love the aesthetic of this brand and the way that everything is laid out. And I said, I really want to buy something from this brand, even though I have 5 or 6 from the brand. I wanted to add more to my collection, you know? And I smelled this one and I'm like, I remember when it first came out and I really enjoyed it. And this one in particular is just a very classy, spicy, lavender fragrance. It has an element of modernity about it, but it still has like a classic appeal, not vintage, but it still has like a classic appeal to it. And I said, you know what, I'm just gonna buy it. I've been wanting it for a while, I'm just gonna buy it. And I purchased it on the spot. And I'm telling you, I bought this, might have been in December of last year, maybe November, I don't remember. But since then, I've already worn half of it, which is disgusting. Like, I don't know why I wore so much of it or why I'm so drawn to it, but it's just when I can't think of what else to smell, I'm like, you know what? This always smells super classy, CEO vibes, elegant gentleman, very well groomed, polished, dressed to impress. And first of all, look at how much I wore. I definitely wore about 50%. I must have worn about 50%. And this one is Masculin Pluriel, Masculine Pluriel by Maison Francis Kurkdjian. It's such a beautiful, beautiful fragrance. And I'm pretty confident Scent Split has this one. So please do yourself a favor, sample this one if you can. Hopefully Scent Split has this one. I doubt it. I know Scent Split is gonna have this one. And this one, you don't need to sample. It's cheap enough. You can just buy it. Please check out these fragrances. I love them for a reason. They're not signature scents for me per se. I mean, I truly love wearing Mephisto Gentiluomo. Uncut Gem is also a favorite of mine. And the Formal by House of Sillage is somewhat of a signature scent for me. But these 5 have been quite wonderful for me over these past few months since the beginning of 2025, realistically speaking. So my 5 most worn fragrances. What have been your most worn fragrances or perfumes in 2025? I would love to hear from you. Drop your comment down below. And of course, if you took anything of value from today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you would consider supporting the channel by clicking subscribe, hitting the bell, and giving this video a thumbs up. It would mean a lot to me. Thanks again for watching. Love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow with a new episode.